Welcome to our first filming of Hailey's Comments. My name is Hailey, and I'm your host for our talk show about mental wellness. Over the weeks, we are going to be talking with lots of different people about what mental wellness is, what mental illness is, and a whole bunch of stuff that subject covers. I want to help reduce stigma in our community. I want to help make our community a more compassionate and supportive place for everyone. Let people know where they can go if they need help, and just talk about all the good things that make life wonderful. Today, my first ever guest is Barbara Swanston. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Hailey. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to be part of this. It's something I'm really passionate about.
You are, huh?
Yeah.
Can you tell me and them what it is that makes you so passionate about this?
I'm really passionate about this because until August 2010, I really didn't give a lot of thought to mental illness or anything like that. And then my son took his own life. Yeah, it was a pretty horrible, probably the most horrible thing that will ever happen to me in my life. And what I discovered, which I didn't know, was that he had been suffering from a profound depression from a mental illness. And so as I started to come to terms with what had happened, I wanted to find out more about it. I wanted to, because we didn't know anything about it. And so I started doing some research and talking to people and meeting lots of other parents, and I made friends with people who had mental illness, and people who I knew for years told me about depression and bipolar and all kinds of issues that they had that I didn't know anything about. So I'm really passionate about getting the word out there and eliminating the stigma and raising awareness around mental illness and about suicide.
That is exactly why I'm doing the show too, to get rid of stigma.
Yeah, stigma's horrible.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk first about what mental health is, what mental wellness is. What is it we're even talking about here?
Yeah, I'm someone who is actually, I have terrific mental health. I'm very resilient. I've had a couple of little short minor depressions in my life, and to me it's about having when your mind is in a place, and your emotions where you are able to live life fully, to deal with things as they come up, and to not be thrown off balance. And I also think what I've learned is that mental illness, there are many degrees of mental illness. We know all about physical illness, but most people, certainly I had a lot of misconceptions about mental illness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I thought people who were depressed, I thought it was just like sadness, you know, so you're depressed, so come on, let's go out and, you know, come on out and have lunch with me, or,
right, like,
you know.
Just get over it. Yeah,
pretty much just get over it. Like, your life's great. Why are you depressed? I didn't understand.
Right.
So it's been a long journey for me to kind of start to really understand.
You know, something we talked about earlier together was about how we look at mental health and mental illness compared to how we look at physical health and physical illness.
So I think you know, Hailey, that I do some public speaking, and I've been to suicide prevention conferences in Ottawa and in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I've spoken to Vancouver, I've spoken here in Campbell River. And one of the things I like to do is I like to ask audience members, you know, when you think of mental health, what do you think of? And what do you think the answers I get are?
Crazy people?
Yeah. Oh, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar. And I go, okay, well, when I say mental illness, what do you think about?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's the deal. If you have a brain.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you have mental health. We all have mental health.
Okay, so is that like, if I have a body, I have physical health?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. And to me, mental illness, I give it a really broad description. To me, a mental illness is anything that disrupts your mental well-being. The same as physical illness. And it, you know, could be illness, but something that disrupts your physical well-being. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a sickness. It could be like if you fell and sprained your ankle.
Right.
right? And you couldn't go into sports, and you couldn't walk, and you had to have a cane or a cast or something like that.
Right.
So that's a disruption. So sometimes you're really anxious or agitated about something like, exam time. Do you get a little freaked out when it's exam time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not really thinking, you're not happy, you're not really able to, you're just focused on, oh my God, these exams are coming and I'm really worried and I got to study, and right? So it's a disruption. But that's a disruption that you're going to, once the exams are finished, then how do you feel?
Right. So it's just a little one.
Yeah. So that's the same. Like, people have anxiety, or they're sad about something, or they're upset, or they're worried about something. So that's a minor thing. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So kind of like physically, if I had a cold.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be there for a few days, and then it's going to go away, and I'll be fine.
Right. Or even the flu, and you're going to be sick for a couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah. But what if, okay, do you know anybody who has cancer?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And what's that like for them? Do you know?
Well, it doesn't just go away in a few weeks.
No.
And it's way, way more scary than having a cold.
So one of my favorite stories, I have a really good friend who suffers from bipolar disorder, she's had it all her life, and it's a chronic, to a certain extent, manageable mental illness. She's also had breast cancer. And when she had breast cancer, she had surgery, she had radiation, and she had chemotherapy. And she was really sick, and the chemotherapy actually almost killed her.
Wow.
Yeah. And I knew all about her breast cancer, and I only knew a little bit about her mental illness until my son died. And then she really started to open up to me about what it was like for her. And I was really shocked when one day she said to me, if I could choose between cancer and depression, I would take cancer. Because I know, shocking.
Wow.
Because compared to depression, cancer was easy.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and that was my reaction. It's
Right.
like, what do you mean? And she said, look, I have suffered from depression as long as I can remember. And I learned really early on that you don't tell people, oh, I don't want to go there, I don't want to do that because I'm depressed. So I would make up reasons. Oh, I have a migraine, or I have something, I'm doing something else. Because of the stigma around, people would say, well, come on, get over it, buck up, what's wrong with you? She said, when I had cancer, nobody turned their back on me. Nobody said, oh, come on, what's wrong with you? Just get better. So she said, and the other thing she said, and this really moved me, she said, when I had cancer, I never gave up hope, no matter how sick I was. She said, when I'm really depressed, I can't remember what it was like before when I wasn't depressed. And I can't imagine what it will ever be like again. I can't imagine I will ever be out of this dark, black, hopeless place. And that just broke my heart. Yeah. And so she's much more open with me about it now. We've talked a lot about stigma, and I think stigma is a huge thing. It's what we've talked about this before, that stigma is something we all believe a lot of things that we all misunderstand. I was really shocked when I was doing my first speech in Belfast. I was invited to go to Belfast, Northern Ireland, to speak at a suicide prevention conference. And I thought, I like to understand what I'm saying and what words mean, so I Googled stigma definition. And do you know what came up?
What?
Stigma, a disgrace associated with a circumstance, quality, or person, the stigma of mental disorder.
Ah, I just saw a pamphlet today, actually.
Yeah?
I'm going to show it to you. It talks
Okay.
about stigma, too.
Oh, I've seen this pamphlet before. This is from the Mood Disorder Society of Canada.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's called The Elephant in the Room.
Cool, yeah.
It says that people with mental illness say that stigma can be worse than the illness itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the definition here, negative, disrespectful judgments about you.
Yeah. And I have another good friend who also suffers from bipolar disorder, and she talks about self-stigma. So it's not just other people.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
Barbara, I've had some issues myself already, even though I'm only 17 years old. I've had some mental illness problems.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that. Are you going to share that with people?
Yeah, I can tell a little bit. Last year, maybe about a year and a half ago, I had what's called psychosis. I was seeing things and hearing things, and I thought that people were all out to get me, and I was not on drugs.
Must have been scary.
It was really scary. And I was isolating, staying to myself, not going out, staying in my room. I didn't trust anybody. And my brother and my friend, they recognized that I was acting weird. And anyway, they talked to my mom, and my mom talked to the doctor, and we ended up getting me some help.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So what did the help look like, Hailey?
Well, I was in the hospital for a couple of months.
Wow.
Yeah. And they found a medication that really helped.
Oh, good.
For me.
Doesn't work right away though, does it? That's my understanding, is that most medications, you have to take them for a little while before they raise your mood.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I also learned, like, I had a counselor, and I learned to talk about my feelings and stuff too.
Yeah.
But you know, this stigma stuff we're talking about,
Yeah.
when I went back to school after my 2 months, there was some people that were bullying me.
Really?
Yeah, they were making fun of me about my mental illness.
What sort of things were they saying, Hailey?
Oh, I don't want to talk about all the details. They called me names and stuff, bad names. Thank goodness for my good friends. You know, like having people that understood a little bit about what was going on for me and being compassionate and kind and sticking by me made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what we did then?
What?
We decided, me and my friends, to do our science fair project on mental illness.
Wow.
So we could help teach people what it was about and how they could be helpful instead of, you know, derogatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I ended up coming to do this show too.
Wow.
Because I got so inspired learning about stuff myself all along the way.
Because even, I mean, as a person who has had some mental illness, although you know what it was like for you, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know what it's like for other people.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, so it's like if I have a disease and you have the same thing, we could have very different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it's important, like for the people themselves, like me, to understand about symptoms and that you're not alone with it.
Right.
And that this does happen for other people, and ways to help yourself and get over that self-stigma, like you were saying. Because I was really ashamed at first.
Yeah, shame's a huge thing, eh?
It's worse. It really is. It's terrible. It makes it much worse.
Yeah.
And it's also important for other people to understand about stuff too, because it can be confusing. Well, you must know.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of the reasons I do what I do, because there's a lot of stigma around suicide too, and 90% of people who attempt or complete suicide have a diagnosable mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of stigma around suicide. People think that people who die by suicide that they're cowardly, or that they're taking the easy way out, and that just. And I have to say, I probably had some of those thoughts as well before I learned what I've learned.
Right.
And what I realize now is, first of all, the will to live is one of the most basic human urges. So to take one's own life, even when you're in a suicidal coma, which is that place that you don't want to live anymore because you're in so much pain, your body will automatically go into survival mode. And so it's not easy. It's not easy to take that final step.
Right.
It's not cowardly. It takes actually a lot of courage.
Right.
And it's certainly not the easy way out.
Right.
There's nothing easy about taking your own life. And I think, you know, you were talking about how you were feeling. One of the things I know about people who are in a suicidal coma is that they tend to feel worthless and hopeless. And they often believe that people will be better off without them. That's really sad.
You know what? Talking about this makes me feel really sad and kind of anxious.
Does it?
Yeah.
So how can I help you then if you're feeling a little sad and anxious? What would be good for you to help you kind of just calm down? Do you have some skills around that?
How about some breathing?
Okay, so And easy breathing, right?
Yeah.
Not really sucking breath in, but just taking easy breaths.
And to remind me that even though we're talking about some hard things here, the reason we're talking about it is for hope.
Absolutely.
And to figure out about the good things in life.
Yeah.
And this show, Barbara, although we will talk about mental illness, the show is actually about mental wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same, and again, I like to come back to the whole physical illness and physical wellness. Even when people are physically ill, the goal for most people is to recover to some extent, to become as physically, we all want to be as physically well as we can.
Yeah.
And also, physical illness affects our mental health. So if you're really ill, you're going to have a disruption to your mental health. So there's going to be some mental disruption, some mental illness per se.
It all goes together, doesn't it?
It all goes together. We
Yeah.
can't separate. We
Right.
can't separate. Now,
Yeah.
when you were going through your psychosis, did you have physical symptoms as well as mental and emotional symptoms?
Well, feelings are kind of physical too, aren't they? Like
I call them feelings.
I had some anxiety, some fear, and I felt it in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know I've heard people say that when they're feeling depressed, that they often feel almost achy and really tired, like it's movement, it just becomes really difficult. They just,
Right.
everything seems to slow down. Or if they're hyper and manic, it's the opposite. It's like they get really agitated and shaky and yeah.
There is so much for us to talk about and learn and explore with this.
Absolutely.
I hope that you will come back again and talk more with me.
I will. I would love to.
I really enjoy talking with you.
I really love talking to you too, and I think it's so important for people to hear conversations like this.
Yeah.
That there's nothing. This is normal. This is all part of life. Whether you're physically well, physically ill, mentally ill, everybody will experience some of that in their life. 1 in 4 people will have a diagnosable mental illness in their life.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. So you think, anybody who's out there watching, if you're watching with a few people and you start looking around, maybe that, when I'm doing my talk and I say that 1 in 4 people, then I start counting out in the audience. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, definitely you. 1. And I'll tell you, people get really uncomfortable. It's like, oh, not me. No, must know them, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, I got kind of just thinking about that, It's just...
Well, part of what we've started doing here is opening up the conversation so it's not hiding in the closet, it's not a shameful thing, it's okay to start talking about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And
It's not
that's
just
what-
okay, I think it's absolutely
It's
necessary.
important.
Yeah,
It's
imperative.
really important as part of our health.
And I want to say, Hailey, I think you're so courageous. I have so much admiration for you for putting yourself out here and being willing to do this show and bring people on and talk about the hard things. Because I know, you were saying earlier, like you're very involved in this and you've had personal experience. So
Yeah.
this is hard for you. So
It is.
way to go.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Shaw TV for filming us, encouraging us, and believing in this idea. And the Schizophrenia Society for making it possible for me to be here. And you, Barbara, and everyone out there who might be watching. I hope you'll come back and watch us some more, because I'm going to have lots of a variety of different kinds of people. Bye. It's a puppet-hosted talk show about mental wellness. It's going to be hosted by me, Hailey, and some of my other puppet and human friends from the Campbell River Schizophrenia Society. We're going to interview lots of different people who are diagnosed with mental illness, their friends and family, professionals that work in the field, maybe even some celebrities and magazine editors. People who practice and teach positive methods of finding happiness in our lives. We have tons of ideas and possibilities.